Hello, everybody. Welcome to Building a Strong Team and the Power of Saying No. I hope you guys are all having a great day. Let's go ahead and get started. So, what are we going to talk about for the next 50 minutes? So, we're going to start with defining what a strong team looks like, and then we're going to talk about how to build that strong team. Then we're going to talk about boundaries and what boundaries are and why we have them, and then how to enforce those. So, that's really it's a pretty straightforward agenda. So who am I? I'm Kathy Kim. I've been in the industry for about 25 years, and I have helped manufacturers develop and deploy their marketing and sales technologies and their strategies, as well as develop the teams that support those strategies. In the last 6 years, I've gone independent, and I help multiple manufacturers join the CET ecosystem and develop what their journey is going to look like, how to optimize budget, etc., to really enhance or create their CET experience. So that's me. That's what I do. Let's move on and get started with what we're here to talk about. So we're going to start with what is a strong team? What are the components that make up that strong team? The first component that I look at when I look at a team is camaraderie, working together to be able to solve problems, understanding how each other's works. So really that team dynamic. That's what I consider the first component of a strong team. The next component is really it's a family-esque type of feel. So as you look at a family, you don't always like each other or get along. Sometimes there's somebody in the family or a sibling that just drives you insane, right? Ignore the watermark on this. I couldn't find a better image, and I really like this one, so I'm sticking with the watermark. So there you have roles within a family, right? You often have the peacekeeper, you have sometimes the leader, you have sometimes the troublemaker, you have roles within a team or within a family, just like you do within a team. Maybe not the same roles, but you do have roles. You also, in a lot of the times in the family, find the times when you work together to solve problems or to build things. Maybe you and your siblings work together to build Lego sets, or when your brother bought a car, you guys work together on the engine to improve it or make it, sound better. So you work together to really solve problems or make things better. And of course, everybody ends up loving and happy and, kumbaya. I put that in there because I think it's funny, not necessarily because it's always true. But there is a level of appreciation that you have within a family. So when I say family-esque, those are the components that I'm talking of when I reference the family-esque natures of a team. So we also have conflicts within a team. And I'm going to ask this question. I hope you guys all answer it. Are conflicts healthy or unhealthy? Conflicts are healthy, right? They definitely are something that we all have. We're smart individuals. We work hard. We want the best for the company, usually. And when you all want that, you all want the same things, you always think your ideas are best. That was going to cause conflicts, either in how you approach them or how you resolve, right? What you're going to do with a solution or how you're going to come up with that solution. So conflicts are healthy. What's the most important part is how you resolve those conflicts. So we're going to talk about. So the next one we're going to talk about is defend together, stronger together. So this is your presentation to the outside of your team. This could be a soft presentation, or it could be a little bit even more behind the scenes. So for example, if I see this as a team defending each other. So I'm sitting at lunch and I hear somebody talking about one of my team members not being able to hit their dates. Maybe I have the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? They're working really hard. We're working as a team to come in and try to help them. So that's kind of a defending your team. If you want to take a little more behind the scenes approach, you can always take that conversation to your leader and say, hey, something you just might want to be aware of. Your leader doesn't necessarily directly address that, but maybe in a meeting or two, they drop the teamwork response as well. So people hear it, people see it. It doesn't have to be a direct conflict, but it's something that shows that your team is there for each other. So the next component that I like to talk about are work styles and understanding and recognizing work styles. So a strong team does work around understanding each individual within that team. So you might have in the upper left, you have somebody who's a stronger personality, who's going to lead the meetings, who's going to be more outwardly talkative. On the upper right-hand corner, you're going to have somebody who's a thinker, right? Who really analyzes the situation, thinks through what's being discussed, listens, digests, doesn't necessarily engage. If you work as a team to understand each dynamic and each individual dynamic, then the person on the upper left-hand side who's probably controlling the meeting to some degree is going to ask the person on the upper right-hand side, hey, what do you think about this? As you hear this, what are your opinions? And really bring them into the conversation and respect their opinions and their input. So, of course, there's more opportunities with the lower left and the lower right. Those were just the examples that I used. But putting some work around understanding and identifying what each individual you have on your team, what their work styles are, is a huge benefit for a strong team. So the next thing that I like to talk about is recognition, making sure that you recognize each employee and when they help or when they participate in any way. If you feel it, say it. So thank yous are a massive benefit to really build that team morale and to build that camaraderie that we started talking about. Even if someone doesn't accept your thank you outright, right? So they kind of blow you off. Don't think it doesn't stick. Don't think that they don't hear you. Don't think that it doesn't make a difference, because it does. Every time you compliment or you recognize somebody, they hear it, even if they don't know how to accept it. So the next thing is the celebrate together. Strong teams celebrate together. So they celebrate their wins together. They celebrate their accomplishments. When you create a team celebration, make sure that everybody's available. So that's the first thing. The second component of it, make sure that it's not veiled with negativity. So for example, don't say, we're going to have a team celebration, but let's do it over dinner tonight. When you're supposed to have your personal time and your family time and your time with your friends, don't interrupt their personal time to be able to have a team celebration. The second component, or the second example of that, would be doing it during work hours. I love a work event where we take the morning and we go maybe do a Habitat for Humanity event together. I think that's fantastic. Don't make it unpaid, right? It's part of your team dynamic. It's part of building your team. Make sure that you don't have a veil of negativity that surrounds it by now saying, oh, we're going to do this, and you have no option, but it's unpaid. It really does completely dilute the purpose of the celebration. And finally, remember that your team is always evolving. You may have personal things that come up, right? Somebody may have a baby. Maybe somebody's mother died. There are personal things that come up with every individual that changes how they interact with the team, or how outgoing they are, or how introverted they are. You may have different team members join your team. You may have team members leave your team. All of that changes the dynamic of your team. So make sure that your team is ready to evolve and doing the work that it takes to be that strong team. So those are the components that I believe make a strong team. Those are, again, their personal preferences. You can pick and choose, you can add, you can maybe take one away. It's your call, but that's what I believe makes a strong team. So now, how do we build a strong team? What does that look like? We need to remember that as we're building our team is not just there, but it's individuals. It's people that are building that team that come together. And the way they come together is how the team is built. So let's talk about how to build that strong team. So first, we have trust. Next, we're going to talk about accountability. Then we're going to talk about some respect and how to build respect. We're going to talk about the importance of communication. And finally, we're going to talk about diversity. These are the pillars within a team that really create a strong structure. So let's first talk about trust. How do we develop trust? The first thing that we need to remember with trust, that it builds over time. When you join a team or when a team starts, there's a level of trust, but it's always resistant trust, right? I'm going to trust you, I think, but it always is hesitant. So to build the trust, a true trust, you need to do things like not overcommit. So when I tell somebody that I'm going to send them an email by this afternoon, then I need to send them an email by this afternoon. If I can't get to it, if I'm booked with meetings all afternoon, don't tell somebody you're going to send them that email this afternoon. Say, I'm really booked. I'll send you the email in the morning while I'm getting coffee, right? Something that you can achieve. So do not overcommit. That's a really simple example, but you get what I mean. The next one is to care, to show interest in other individuals, not just about work, but also about what they're interested in. You do that by active listening, asking questions. So you ask, you listen to their response, and then you ask more questions based on their response. That's active listening. Listen more than you speak, another key communication point. And be present. When you're speaking with someone, speak with them. Create eye contact, make eye contact, keep eye contact. Don't look at your phone. If your phone buzzes, ignore it. If your phone rings, ignore it or decline it. Don't look around and see what else is going on. We all have talked to that person. We know when someone is listening and when they're not. The next one is really important. To develop trust, you need to make sure that you're asking for input, but you're asking for input when you actually would be able to take the input. Let's use a price increase as an example. We have a price increase. It's coming out January 1st. My question to my team is not, when do you think we can have a price increase ready by? My question to my team is, how do you think we can support a January 1st price increase? And everybody's going to go, whoa, that's too fast. We don't have time. Exactly. So let's work as a team to determine what steps we need to take to be able to get there, what that work looks like, and let's break it down to see if we actually can hit January 1st. So that's it, or how we're going to hit January 1st. That's how you seek input when you have the flexibility, or how to change the question so it supports flexibility. And then create and support shared goals. Let's keep it that same example. When you do a price increase, every individual is going to have a role within that increase. Now include in that what some group goals could be, right? Or you could say that Joe Schmagatella has to complete X part of the price increase, and that feeds into Jill's work. So they clearly see how they have to work together to be able to meet the overall goal. Okay, so next we have accountability. So how do we enforce accountability within the team? Remember that accountability is not just about deliverables. We are going to talk, because it's the easiest one, primarily about deliverables, but it also is about actions, interactions, expectations, and a whole lot more than that. So for example, I expect my team to act a certain way. I expect their interactions within the team and external the team to represent our team and how we want to be presented. So make sure that those expectations are clear. Create a purpose and define a fit. So to be able to create accountability, you need to create a purpose for each individual. You need to create a purpose for an overall team, and then define how each individual fits in that purpose. So that's kind of a lot in that one statement. You need to create a team purpose, an individual purpose, and define how that individual fits within the team purpose. So it kind of holds it all together and they understand their role. When you're developing timelines, make sure that the individuals, you're allowing them to develop their own timelines. As a leader, I expect that you'll buffer their timelines that they create, because your goal is to set them up for success, and give them a little extra time in case something happens, if they get sick one day or 2 days. So they make sure that you have that buffer in there. I expect that each individual is going to create their own buffer too, but you need to add one to it. You will get to know your team members to know how much buffer for each person. You might have an individual who is always delivering early. That's great. Only a little bit of buffer for them. You might have a team member that's always working up to the very, very end. You might have a little bit extra buffer for them. So you'll understand as you move forward how to, for each individual, create that buffer. But remember, you're setting them up for success. You want them accountable, but you also want them to be successful within it. So you don't necessarily have any corrections that you need to make. Set expectations. I expect this to be done on time or early. I expect that you'll deliver this to Joe, right? Set expectations. I expect you to work with Sally to be able to deliver this or to make sure that you're delivering what she expects. Set expectations. And then do consistent check-ins. So we've created their purpose. They've created their timelines, and we've repeated their timelines and increased their timelines a little bit. We've set the expectations so they know what we're expecting. Now we just need to check in, right? Check in on one-on-ones, check in team meetings as a group. Everybody good? Do we need help? Looks like you might be a little tight on your timeline. Are you good, or do you need help? If you do get the sense that someone is running behind, make sure you offer help. Don't just wait for them to come to you, but you offer help. This is within a team as well as from a leadership down. If I have a team member and I feel like they're struggling a little bit or running behind, and I've got a little extra time, I've got 2 or 3 hours extra today, I'm going to go ask them if I can help. Hey, I know you're tight on this. It seems like you're spending a lot of time. Is there anything that I can help with? Even take a couple of emails off your plate or some data entry, right? I can do that. I know I don't know AutoCAD, but I know data entry. Can I do some of that for you? So what can I do to help? If the data is missed, it's a whole different scenario, right? So now we have a missed date. The first thing you need to do is make sure that you support your team. This is not the time the data is missed. This is not the time to do finger pointing. This is the time to support. You listen to what happened. You listen to why the data is missed so you can adjust. So now we adjust our team members. We adjust our resources. We adjust our timeline. We adjust our effort. Maybe we adjust and work some overtime. But you have to listen to be able to understand how and where to adjust. You adjust as a team. So maybe we know that Jill has finished her work ahead of time. Yay, Jill. She's got 4 extra hours. Maybe we pull her in and we ask her to help us be able to, we've missed our date, but help us set the next date and be able to achieve the next date, which might be 2 days out. So adjust your dates, and then bring people in and thank them. Thank Jill for her contribution, right? Thank anybody for anything they do, even if it's just input and helping decide how we could do it, how we could improve the date or how we could hit the next date. Thank people. Then after you've launched, after you now have hit the secondary date, let's do a postmortem. Our postmortem is going to be with individuals and with team members, but with an individual first. So we're first going to talk to an individual and say, why did we miss the date? What happened? Were there surprises that we didn't know about? Get that. Did you know about it ahead of time? Did you have a feeling a week ago that you were going to miss the date? How could we make it so you feel more comfortable coming and talking about that and asking for help? What can we do for you? Right? If this is a repetitive occurrence, right? So now we're on the 6th time this individual has missed the date. Let's talk about what we can do so it doesn't happen again, because it can't happen again, right? We need to have either better estimations. We need to have more of a buffer. My recommendation in that type of a situation would be, let's see if I find somebody on the team who does estimating really, really well, right? Joe is a great estimator. So let's see if either Joe can come in and give a training for the whole team, right, on how he does his estimating, so we can maybe get some tips and tricks from him. Or maybe on the next project, he works with this individual directly and he helps them develop their timeline, right? So we've recognized Joe because his strength in estimation, which is really cool. We all love that. And we've helped this individual hopefully improve their skills so it doesn't happen again. Win-win, right? Okay. So we've talked about trust. We've talked about accountability. Now we can talk about respect. Respect is a pretty easy one, you guys. You want respect. Everybody wants to be respected. How do you do that? You give respect. If you respect somebody else, chances are it's going to come back your way. If you don't respect somebody else, I can guarantee you they're not going to respect you. How do we build respect within our team? You be a model. And this is everybody within the team. Any person can take every one of these aspects to improve or develop respect within a team. So be a model of respect. Remember, respect begins day one. This is not like trust. Trust is not necessarily built over time, or respect is not necessarily built over time. It can grow over time, but it begins day one. You start a team with a baseline of respect. Conflict recovery helps build that respect. Identifying the conflict, working through the conflict, and moving on, that helps build that respect. We just talked about it builds over time. What can hurt respect? Avoid gossip. It's human nature to gossip. It's human nature to want to gossip. Avoid it. Avoid it if you can at all costs. It doesn't do good for anyone. The next one that appears to be under my face is avoid negativity. We all know the person who's negative. We all know the person who comes into meetings negatives, who comes into one-on-ones negatives, comes into one-on-ones negatively. It wears on people, and they start to see you now as a negative force. What happens then is that when you do have something to provide, and it's a true caution, people are just going to discount it because you're always negative. Oh, they're always negative. That doesn't build respect. It doesn't build rapport. Check the negativity at the door. And if you don't have something positive to say, this is where you stay quiet, right? Unless it's really a constructive negative, stay quiet. And the final, if you lost it, fake it till you make it. If you've lost your respect for someone, you fake it, and hopefully it will grow back over time. All right, so communication is the next one. Communication is critical to me. In every aspect of a team, communication is at the forefront. A lot of keys with communication. Be honest about your availability. This is a big one. People, again, we talked about this before. If you don't have time, don't commit to it, right? So if somebody wants 15 minutes of your time to chat with you, don't say, yeah, and then be disengaged. Make sure that if they ask for 15 minutes, you give them 15 minutes. Make sure it's time that you have available. If you don't have it available right now, say, what about coffee tomorrow morning? You're going to get coffee anyways. Why not use that time constructively? When you're speaking with somebody, ask if they're just venting or if they want your help, especially if you're a fixer. So if they come to you and they are just complaining about a situation or a project or something that's just happening, ask, do you want me to step in and go talk to that person or talk to their leader to see if we can get some help? Or are you just venting? If they're just venting and they tell you about an issue and you go to the leader and say, hey, can we get some help for Jill? They're often going to feel like you stepped on their toes and didn't trust how they were going to handle it. So make sure that you're clear on what their expectations of you are. Provide time for focused attention. We already talked about that. No surprises. Make sure that you're clear with your team. And this was one of my big things, is I didn't want to be surprised. If I went into a leadership meeting, I didn't want to hear from somebody else that were running behind on a date. I didn't want to hear from somebody else that Joe Schmuckatel's mom passed, right? And that he was going to be taking, next week off. No surprises. Make sure that you communicate. As hard as it is that you're going to miss that date, make sure that you communicate with me so I can help you through it and we can work together or as a team to be able to address it. That way, when I go into this meeting and they say, hey, Joe Schmuckatel is going to miss his date, I get to come back and say, yep, we already know. We're already working on it as a team. We already have a new date set, and we're trying to figure out what the impact of that is. So it's much easier to defend the team and have their back if I know what's coming. Always have their back. Even if you don't know what's coming, have their back. Never throw a team member under the bus. You always come back and say, you know what? Let me go back and check with Joe on that. And we'll work through it as a team, and we'll get back to you by the end of the day, right? Make sure you get back to him by the end of the day. Say what you do what you say. So make sure you get back to him because that's what builds the trust. Now you have open communication, you have trust, you have respect because you did what you said you were going to do. Share what they mean to you. With team members, they want to have purpose. They also want to know that they're important, right? So I know my purpose. We've already talked about that. We talked about how I fit. Now, what does that mean to the team? What does that mean to you? You care about them as a person. You want them to be successful as a person as well as in their job. So make sure you share what they mean to you and how important that they're their happiness within their role is important to you. Make sure you share that. A couple more things about communication, right, you guys? I love these dogs. Love these dogs. You'll see them a couple more times. Listen 50%, 57% of the time. Talk 43% of the time. I think it should be a little higher on the listen side, a little less on the talk side. We all know the person who talks incessantly and talks over everyone or has to share their knowledge about everything. The more you do that, the more people start to question your capabilities, because the more you speak, it's like you're trying to overcompensate. Be careful. And it also doesn't how much you talk. So be careful of how much you overtalk someone, especially if it's not your responsibilities, if it's theirs. Respect their knowledge. Encourage their knowledge. If you can help them build their knowledge, that's great. But make sure you're listening more than you're talking. That way it's showing more respect for their abilities and their knowledge. These are just standard active listening skills, you guys. I love active listening. If any of you want to talk about this in more detail, we don't have a lot of time to go through it today. Give me a call, shoot me a quick email, and we can chat about it, about the next kind of depth of what active listening looks like. It's critical. It's very important within a team to make sure that you have that. So it's really things like, clarify, listen, clarify, paraphrase, and then make sure that you're asking questions about what they're saying to you. And that's going to come up later too, as we talk about boundaries. So our final component is diversity. So diversity, when we're talking about diversity, make sure that you be careful that you don't build a team of mini-me's. We're drawn to people that are similar to ourselves. So make sure that when you're building your team, you're looking outside of those characteristics to be able to continue to evolve and build your team. Make sure that you have varied background and skill sets. So that's what I mean when I say diversity, is they have a different background or skill set that they bring to the table. So for example, have a team member, if you could have a team member that came up through and navigated the organization and came up through manufacturing to get to where they are. And then maybe you have another person on your team that is strong in education and they have a PhD. So now you're bringing together somebody who has the navigational capabilities within an organization and the networking strengths, and then you have somebody with the educational expertise, and bringing those two people into a brainstorming session really is going to create a unique perspectives, which are going to foster fantastic solutions. So the different perspectives that you can bring into a conversation are really going to create dynamic approaches to a problem. When we're talking about diversity and diversity within a team, it also means that we need to lead with diversity. So what that means is that I'm going to recognize an individual for their individual contributions, their individual creativity, and the individual aspects that they need to be successful. So for example, when I'm structuring my recognition, maybe I have an individual who's an extrovert and who loves to be the attention, loves to be in front of people, right? That person, if I have a corporate event and I can recognize them in the corporate event, oh my gosh, that's fantastic. And get them up and have them say a couple words like, an acceptance speech. They will love that. There might be another person who would shrivel up if you ask them or if you recognize them in front of a big group and had them stand up. Maybe they're better that you recognize them with a gift card for dinner and a movie with their significant other. And that's how they would love to be recognized. Maybe you have an individual in a team meeting who's really somebody who's outgoing and excited. And that's how you need to lead them, is in that same match, that energy. And maybe there's another individual who's very reserved and quiet. And if you come into their meeting or into their one-on-one with that same energy that you came into the first person's, they're going to feel like you're just walking right over them, right? That you're just tumbling right over the top of them because you have a really strong energy. So make sure that as you're recognizing individuals, you're matching their energy, you're matching what their needs are as a leader. You can also take that into account when you're team to team. And your team members working within team members, making sure that when you're in a conversation or when you're in a project with an individual, making sure that you're matching energies and not not rolling over the top or falling off too far backwards into the corner, but you're matching energy. Acknowledge the fit for the individuals and their purpose. So now I have a project. I'm going to acknowledge the individual. I'm going to acknowledge their energy level and how they function best. And then I'm going to connect them, their individuality, to the purpose of the team or the project. So now they have recognition of how they interact, who they are, what their core foundational personality traits are, and in their work. You can't have more connectivity for a diverse individual or a diverse team than that. That's a whole well-rounded way to bring the team together. The last component would be to create shared goals. So now I have an individual that's being recognized, has purpose, has how they fit within the team. Now, if there are project opportunities where I can have multiple teams on a project or multiple individuals on a project that cross skill sets and they can figure out how to work together, that just creates that camaraderie within the team. So this is how everything comes together. So around the outside, you have what creates a strong team. And then through the center, you have how to create that strong team. So what are the characteristics? And then how to create that. And you'll see a lot of those components within there were repetitive and they build on each other. So diversity, there's components of diversity that are also going to help build respect, which are also going to help build trust. So all of these pieces and parts, they're all intertwined. Okay, so now let's talk about boundaries. When we're talking about a strong team, we've developed our strong team, we've created our strong team. Now, how do we help them be as successful as possible? That's boundaries. So the main purpose, and this is what we all need to understand, the main reason to create a boundary is to be able to protect focus, energy, and priorities of your team. We're not creating boundaries just to be able to say no to somebody. We're creating boundaries to protect the team and the work that we do. So why do we do that? So we do that so we build better work. The more a team can focus, the more individuals can focus and have a clear directive on where they're going and work on that on a regular basis, a daily basis, the better work that you're going to have as a result. It creates trust and respect when you develop boundaries and you develop their priorities so we're clear and you defend those. It really fosters trust and respect within the organization as well as external to your team. And it promotes authentic communication. People are going to believe you because you're honest. You're going to see a lot of that throughout. Boundaries is about honesty. I love this phrase. You're going to see a couple of phrases in here that I think are just stellar. A thoughtful no enables future collaboration. So when I tell somebody no, and I defend my team, they're not going to like it, right? Nobody likes that. But they know I'm protecting my team because of everything that we're going to talk about here in a minute. They know that I'm protecting what the team has on their plate and what our goals are. So when I come in the future and I say, yep, we can work on that project, they know that they're going to get that same protection when we start their project. So it enables future collaboration. What they're not barriers. It's not about shutting doors. It's also not glamorous, right? Nobody likes being told no to, and you're not going to make friends. And I added today to that because, like I said, tomorrow when you can do their project, you're going to be their best friend. All right, so boundaries are hard, especially when you have somebody that you respect, but we're going to talk about how to get through that and how to make it pretty clear. We already talked about it being a tool that enables better work. We already talked about being a builder of trust and respect and encourage authentic communication. But also remember, it's uncomfortable at times, but in the end, it's worth it, right? Because your team is going to be able to achieve, they're going to feel successful, and the rest of the organization is going to see your team's success, and they're going to believe in you and your team, and what you say is what you do. All right, so let's talk about how we do this. How do we create smart boundaries? End all be all, core of everything, create clarity. So to be able to create boundaries, you need to be clear on what you're trying to achieve. How do we do that? First, you're going to build your foundation. You're going to create a North Star. What? What am I doing? Am I bringing CET into the organization? Am I adding CET to project management within our organization? Am I doing a price increase, right? What is my North Star? What is the project? What is the team goal? It can be huge or it could be a small North Star. It doesn't matter. You got to have a purpose. Why? Why are we doing this? So now we know price increase is pretty easy, right? We need to achieve a price increase. But why are we bringing CET into the organization? Why are we adding CET to that process, right? Let's say it's project management. I want to add CET to the project management process. Why? Is it going to reduce resources? Is it going to reduce workload? Is it going to optimize our results? Is it going to reduce the amount of maintenance that we have on a product or an order? Is it going to reduce the amount of times an order is touched, right? Because every time you touch it, you increase your opportunity for error. So what is the purpose? All of it, not just one or two things, all of it though, all the reasons. Now connect the purpose to the why, right? So what is the purpose and why are we doing it? So the North Star, purpose, combine them together. Identify my goals. So what are my goals to achieve the purpose? Why am I achieving the purpose and how am I going to get there, right? So what are my goals along the way? Articulate my deliverables and who's going to help me with those deliverables. So now I'm creating a project plan that shows how I'm going to achieve my North Star, how long we're going to work on each phase, who's going to work on each phase, and what that phase is going to achieve. Who's going to work on the next phase, what that phase is going to achieve, and when, right? So we have a very clear definition of who, what, and when. So combine everything together. We have a what, we have a why, we have a who, we have a when, and we have a how. So we have it all together to be able to create our North Star and build our foundation. Now we've built it, right? Our team agrees. We all are on the same page. We know how we're going to achieve success. What do we do with that? We share it is what we do with that. We communicate it. We share it. We shout it from the mountaintops. We share it at corporate initiatives, right? When we have our quarterly corporate update, I see if I can get 5 minutes. Better yet, I bring my team members in and each one of them get to talk for 2 minutes on what their role is to create this North Star. So we start by outlining what the North Star is, and then each one of them get to define what their purpose is, right? Or how they fit in creating that North Star. We talk about it in other team meetings. Let's say engineering is having a team meeting. Let's go chat in there. Let's go tell them what we're working on so they know. Let's say that sales is having a team meeting. Great. Let's go talk in sales and tell them what we're doing and tell them why. Tell them how it's going to help them, right? How are we going to connect our North Star with something that's going to help their workload? So shout it from the mountaintops everywhere you can. So now we've created our clarity, right? So we know what we're doing. We know who we're doing it. We know when we're doing it. We're knowing how we're doing it. So we've created our clarity. Now we've shared our clarity, right? Now we get a request come in. And the first thing that we need to do with that is we need to make sure that we have an open dialogue. Our response to anybody with a request is not, nope, we don't have time. Our plates are full. Our response is to sit down and to talk with them about what their request is. We need to make sure that we have a presentation of adaptability. We don't just blatantly say no. We may have flexibility or adaptability based on what they're asking, how they're asking for it, when they're asking for it, how much time it's going to take, right? Depending on all the factors, we may be able to help with components of that. But we're going to be honest about it. We're going to listen to them. We're going to hear them. We're going to react to them. But we're going to be honest. I don't think that's going to fit within our timeline. But what can we do? You know what? I think we've got 3 days that we could probably meld together between the team that we could put towards this project. You know what? We are booked solid for the next 2 weeks. Maybe we could fit it in after that. Honesty. And communicate. I'm all about the communication, you guys. Okay. So the art of saying no. This is where they put the request in. We've heard their request. We've digested it. Now we have to make a decision. So recognize our types of no's. We have the easy no's. Well, they've asked us and it's not aligned with any mission within the company. It's not going to help anything that the company is focused on right now. And we don't have time for it. Pretty simple no. Hard no, it's a great idea, but the wrong time. I would love to automate that process. That is a fantastic idea. Unfortunately, right now, we do not have a moment to spare. We're working overtime to be able to try to achieve our current goals. Let's readdress in January, right? And talk about it in January. Maybe we can get it on the books for January. The avoidant yes. This is just saying yes because I don't want to deal with saying no to you. Nobody's going to appreciate that. Your team is not going to appreciate that. The requester is not going to appreciate that because you're probably not going to be able to hit their date. And the team is now going to be overworked and feel that you don't have their back. Again, respect, trust, building all that, right? I love this phrase. It's another one. A no today often enables a stronger yes for tomorrow. So saying no and controlling those boundaries today may open up January so you can help them in January. And again, when you do that and you're able to then help them in January, they know that you support and defend your boundaries. So they feel that that's going to be a valid and accurate representation of what you're going to do in the future for them. How do we do this now? How do we support a respectful no? We acknowledge and listen. The dogs again, just saying the dogs again. So we acknowledge and listen. We make sure that we hear their request. And that's really what we're talking about is being able to say, I hear your request, right? This is what I hear you need. And this is what I hear your driver is, right? What is the reason for their request? So we've listened to what they've asked for. Now we're repeating. He's actually talking into the phone. So now we're repeating what we heard and we're repeating what their driver and their goal is. So understand their why. This is really important, you guys, because there's a potential that as much as they're coming to you with this conversation, their driver goal may come back and make you go, that may trump bringing CET and adding it into the process, the project management process. Their driver may be because we're losing or potentially losing a significant client. If we lose that significant client, we're not going to have money to be able to bring CET and to be able to support that project. That might trump your initiative, and you might have to rework your timelines to be able to support this. So again, their driver and goal, they may not articulate it out of the gate. They may ask for what they need, but their driver and goal, and that may not trump what you have going on, but their driver and goal may. So make sure you're hearing everything about their request. Make sure that you're also writing it down or you're emailing it or you are doing something that can share between the two of you so you hear the groups to make sure that you're hearing and walking away with the same thing. All right. Be honest. Be honest. State your constraint, why you don't think that you're going to be able to do it or why you can do it. Be clear. And hold your boundary, right? We have 4 hours that we could spend towards this tomorrow, but that's about it for the next 2 weeks. Don't backtrack. Oh, okay, maybe we can give you 8 hours. Don't backtrack. If you feel that 4 hours is what you can give, then give 4 hours and be done. Don't overtalk it. They can overtalk. Let them overtalk all they want to. You've stated your case. You've stated your position. Let them talk. Thank them for their time and be done and document, right? Offer alternatives. I love this part. When you say no, don't just say no. But what else could you do to help them? Are there different resources on a different team that you know might have some more flexibility than you do right now? Do you think that based on what they've said, they might be able to push their date and then you could help them? What about a reduced scope? What if they tell you what they need and they tell you their driver? What if you have some insight that helps them realize they don't need all of that? They could just do a smaller component of it and still meet that expectation. So can you help them manage their scope to be able to deliver what they need? And remember future alignment. We can't do it today, but let's revisit next quarter. Okay, so we've talked about what we're doing with boundaries. We talked about how to set them. We've talked about how to say no, right? How do we make this easier in the future so we don't so it's easier to address moving forward. Some pretty direct opportunities are a clear request process with a queue. So either put it in an email or put it in some type of format. I know a company who just had it handwritten, right? They would come in, and before COVID and everybody works from home, they would come in and handwrite on their request. I need 3 more designs of this layout by Tuesday, right? And they would put it on there. And in the morning, the team would come in, they would look at it, they would prioritize, and they knew what they were going to work on for the day, the week, or whatever. If you do that, make sure you have an escalation for emergencies. So, for example, if Joe put something on there, but he needs it by end of day tomorrow, he knows that that's an emergency, and there's a process for him to go send a request or to call so-and-so to be able to try to get that up earlier on the timeline or on that list, and maybe even start it before the meeting tomorrow morning when they review their priorities. Complete regular reviews with requesters. So let's say I'm a design team and I'm a design team lead. Maybe I have a weekly Monday morning meeting from 9 to 10, and I go through what's on our agenda for the week. And I invite all of the standard requesters, sales, right, leaders, they're all invited to this meeting to hear what we have on our list. They may know they have something coming up later in the week and they kind of want to hear what we have going on. Maybe they have something on the list that they want to review. Maybe they're just interested, right, to know what we're working on. Well, let's go through it. So they're aware of what we have on our docket. And more communication, right? Communicate not just what your project is and your North Star. Create a communication that helps people understand what you have on your plate, what your team has on their plate, how many designs we're putting out a week, based on how much we did before CET. Communicate, communicate, communicate. You cannot communicate too much. And remember, a thoughtful no is more respectful than a dishonest yes. All right, so we're going to go through a summary really quickly. We talked about what team dynamics are important to you. They're important to me. Which ones of these are important to you? Are there different ones that are important to you? But define those and set those in front of you so you remember and you know what your team is comprised of and what your focus is. We talked about how to build a strong team, right, with those pillars. As much as the characteristics of a strong team, you can build yourself. But as far as what these pillars are, they're pretty set in stone. You need trust. You need accountability, respect, communication, diversity. The interesting thing and the fun thing about this is you have opportunities every day to affect these pillars. Every day. When you're walking down the hall or when you're sitting in your office and you get a phone call and somebody says, do you have 15 minutes of your time? Can I have 15 minutes? And you don't have 15 minutes, right? Remember this. Oh, this is an opportunity for me, right? There are so many opportunities throughout the day that you have to build each one of these. Start to recognize them as they come into your purview, right? Start to see them and put them into one of these buckets. So you could almost do this with every conversation you have or every connection you have. If somebody is bringing an issue to you and they heard a conversation, you know what one would this fall into? How do I want to address this to help build respect, right? Or to build trust or to represent accountability. So think about that as you're having each conversation. Which pillar would I want to build with this conversation? Then we talked about boundaries. We talked about creating clarity. Key to all boundaries, creating clarity. And then the rest of that just flows from there. Your communication, right? Your ability to say no, all of that builds from creating clarity. And then to create your thoughtful no. What does that look like? How do you actually care for someone else's project and need? You listen to them, right? You listen to what they need. You listen to what their driver is. You listen to why they need it. And then you try to help them solve it. Even if your team doesn't have the time to solve it, is there anything you can do from a strategy standpoint, from a knowledge standpoint that they may not have? Is there anything you can do to help them So build that thoughtful no, not just a nasty, no, we're not going to do it. So that's what we talked about today, you guys. What team qualities are important to you as you're building your team? Identify your opportunity to build your pillars, create your clarity to define your boundaries, and then building a thoughtful no. So if you want to talk about this in any more detail or you need any additional information, please feel free to reach out. Here's my contact information. Feel free to leave feedback. I think that you can do that on a replay as well. Not 100% sure, but I think you can. But feel free to reach out. I would love to have a conversation. If you have a specific example that you just want to talk through and brainstorm, I am all about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. Have a wonderful day. Bye, you guys.